Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the council meeting for Wednesday, July the 12th. And at this time, I will call this meeting to order. The first order of business is our land acknowledgement. We are gathering on lands that have been home to the First Nations people from time immemorial. We acknowledge that what we now call Richmond Hill is on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the Mississaugas and Chippewa nations of the Williams Treaty. We also recognize that we're on part of the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee and the Huron-Wendat. We would like to acknowledge all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people from across North America, also known as Turtle Island, who now reside in the city of Richmond Hill. We are committed to rebuilding constructive and cooperative relationships. So with that, if you can, I would ask you to all stand for our national anthem. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. The first item now on the agenda is a public forum, and we have one person registered, Matthew Piazza, regarding traffic calming measures in the Westbrook neighborhood. Welcome, Mr. Piazza. So you've got 5 minutes to address council. If I may, actually, just at this time, I'll just say this the one time. For delegations today, there's a 5-minute limit, and there will be the first bell will be 1 minute left to go, and then the second bell that you hear will be time is up. So just so everybody knows from here on in. So go ahead.
Thank you. I had sent a document. Thanks. That's perfect. Can I get to page 2, actually, if you don't mind? Of that document? Thanks. Great. Good morning. My name is Matthew Piazza. I'm a longtime Richmond Hill resident, and I'm here today a bit selfishly, but I'll get to that in a moment. As I drive around Aurora, Markham, and Vaughan, I see these flexi signs in many neighborhoods. They're often near schools and along large stretches of roads with no stop signs. And as you can tell, they're obviously to discourage speeding. As I drove here along Elgin Mills today between Bayview and Leslie, these flexi signs are in place, both as a lane marker and to discourage people speeding with the construction going around there. Now for the selfish part, can we please go back to the first page? Thank you. I live on Leyburn Avenue. This is just from Google Maps. There's a blue house marker there in the first red box, and there's 2 green dots for town trees. And it's not as accented on Google as if you did drive on Leyburn, but my driveway, the edge of the driveway is a bit blind for cars driving north on Leyburn. And with the warm weather, unfortunately, there are speeding has increased. I know this is a YRP issue, but just from me and in my home and working around my home, I do see more and more people speeding. And I am just here today wondering if Richmond Hill can follow sort of what's been going on in York Region again with near these schools and near these long stretches of roads for these flexi markers to discourage speeding. People take the bend again they kind of drift into the other lane, especially when there's no cars there, and then they go quite fast. And hopefully these flexi signs would discourage that. And I've also highlighted in the top there the bend in Rothbury Road. As I walk to Rouge-Crest Park, I do often see the same thing. It is a bend, and there are some driveways there that can be a bit blind with all the trees and greenery there. And that's it. That's what I'm here to say. I know it's not an overnight stamp, but hopefully that's something we can look at moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The public forum is really designed to bring issues to the attention that are not on the agenda, which you've done very well. So I would suggest that you work with your local councillor in this area. And actually, I wouldn't mind talking to you about this as well, because I have a little bit that I can add as well if you want to give me a shout. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, council announcements. Is there anybody that would like to make council announcements? Councillor Silovitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome to everyone in chambers and who's watching us online. I just wanted to say a very, very quick thank you to everybody for helping to make our Ward 5 Music Festival on Sunday a great success. I want to thank all the volunteers, a true army. I want to thank all of our staff who were involved, Ava, Nikki, Susan, Paula, and Sadra. Thank you so much for joining in to help with the soccer. And I want to especially thank Pat and Marnie Pollock, who were there the entire day. Pat with us through committees, and Marnie took all the fabulous photographs that you can see on our social media pages. I want to thank Luca and all the ops staff. They were incredible. To all our musicians and performers, and to Derek, who was our production manager, and Brent, who was our MC. Thank you for once again making this a memorable occasion. Thank you to all the dignitaries who came, to all my council members, and to Suzanne Smoke and Cedar Smoke and Jacob Charles, who brought us the incredible Indigenous land acknowledgement, as well as dancing and a drum circle. Thank you so much. We were honored. To Raha for her wonderful Persian dances. We are looking forward to 2024, when we can make this even bigger and better. So my thanks to everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hsu.
Thanks, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to announce I will be hosting a seminar focused on Young North Subway Extension and Richmond Hill Center Secondary Plan tonight. The projects mentioned above are the two most significant developments in my ward and also our city. So as they will directly impact the residents' daily lives. So I'm honored to have representative from Metrolinx and our government joining us to provide the latest information on this development. So I would like to invite the residents, especially the neighbors in my ward, to join the seminar tonight. 7:30 on the first floor of the EBC building, this building, committee room 2. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else for council announcements? Okay, seeing none, we have everybody in council chambers today, and Regional Local Councillor Chan and Regional Local Councillor DePaulo are joining us virtually, just for information. I would like to say thank you also to Councillor Silovitz for the event. It was very well done, and a great idea to have a music festival in Richmond Hill. We certainly have a lot of talent that can be showcased. And also to Councillor Hsu, I've gone to a couple of your meetings and they've been all really well done. And you know, the two items that you're talking about today are very, very important for the city, as well as that part of town. City, sorry. Anyway, so at this point, I'd like to ask if there's any emergency or time sensitive matters to be introduced. Okay, seeing none. We do have, the next item is adoption of the agenda. There is one delegation that was due to a bit of a confusion, was a bit late in being registered by the clerk's department, Robert Livingstone. So with permission of council, I would like to add Mr. Livingstone at the end of the Sabella Ridge delegations. Seeing no objection. So at this point, I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Silovitz, Councillor Tree, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Anybody on council? Seeing none. Okay, so we have adoption of previous council minutes. There was a council meeting held on June the 20th and another council meeting on the June 28th. We could adopt both of those as a package. Councillor Davidson, Councillor Liu, all those in favor? Opposed, that carries. Thank you. And so at this point, we need identification of items requiring separate discussion. We have a public hearing coming up, 12.1, which will be separated. We have the Sabella Ridge issue that's going to be separated automatically. And I believe, oh yeah, sorry, the pickleball item, which is 15.2.3, is going to be held due to delegations. The rest could be passed on consent. Is there anybody that would like to separate any other additional items? Okay, Councillor Tree.
So Mayor, I just want to confirm, 15.2.6 is already extracted.
Yes.
Right? Okay,
It has
thanks.
delegation, so it's automatically, and anything on the sheet that's bolded is going to be pulled automatically.
Thank you.
In seeing no others, then I need a motion to adopt the remainder. Councillor Silovitz, Councillor Tree, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. So the minutes have been adopted. 12.1 will be held. 15.1, 15.2, and all the subgroups in those. 15.2.4, 15.2.5. 15.2.7, 15.2.8, 15.2.9, 15.2.10, 15.2.11, 15.3, 15.4, 15.5, and 15.6 have been separated, have been passed on consent. And then 16.1 and 16.2 are member motions, which will be held automatically because they're member motions. Okay. So if there's anybody here for any of those other items, you can stay if you'd like, but we've passed those on consent. All right, so moving on, we have a public hearing, and we do have one item today, a complaint under the Development Charges Act 1997 from Tara Hill Ambulatory Surgical and Medical Center at 9355 Leslie is here, and I think we have, is it Vladimir Nickel? Is the delegate today? Who's the delegate? Mr. Clerk?
Yes,
Oh, Michael
David.
McConnell. Okay.
Vladimir Nickel works with Nor Architects.
Okay, hold on a
I-
sec. Hold on a sec, Michael, just a sec. Okay. All right. So Mr. McConnell, if you want to go ahead, you've got 5 minutes to address council. Go ahead.
Okay, I think Valdemar is just joining as well. David, thank you. Tara Hill Ambulatory Surgical and Medical Center is a charity that was formed in 2021. The building at 9355 Leslie Street, which was in receivership since December of 2018, was originally a private health initiative. It was purchased by the charity that was formed in 2021 by the generous support of the Schroeder Foundation, the directors being Walter and Maria Schroeder. They've donated well over $100 million to various public health philanthropic projects in and around the city of Toronto since forming the charity in 2014. The property was in receivership for almost 3 years when we acquired it, mainly to do ambulatory surgical cases on an outpatient basis. The property is well over 200,000 square feet. The original developer paid development charges when it was originally permitted. The entity that plans to perform the surgeries within the building will be applying under the new Integrated Community Health Facilities Services Act. Bill 60, that is going through regulations with the province of Ontario. We plan to be the first orthopedic charitable organization operating without a public hospital license, which is something extremely special to have in Richmond Hill. Sorry, 1 second. The building itself will likely hold about 300 to 400 employees when it's at capacity. We expect this to be a significant economic development for the city of Richmond Hill. There's something very special happening at 9355 Leslie Street that we wanted to make all councillors aware of, and I know, David, you've been out to see it with some of your group, just to know what's happening out there. We see that the future of healthcare reform in terms of efficiencies, cost effectiveness, and the like. I'll let Valdi go through specifically where we see the errors that were made in the development fees at this point.
Mr. Mayor, council, staff, hello, I'm Valdemar Nickel.
Okay,
my
hold on a
apologies.
sec, Valdemar. We'll reset the clock.
Thank you.
You're a second delegation, so.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
If we could just go to slide number 4, staff, that would be fantastic. And I will be as concise as possible. What we have with this development is a very unique building and occupancy type that the development charges bylaw has never contemplated or hasn't provided provision to. So in our latest site plan amendment that Mr. McConnell had referred to in terms of redeveloping and adding on, as you can see in the graphic here, some significant amount of area, 95% of that area that's been added on is non-occupied space. So, for example, this building is intense on energy. So there's a lot of power plant and mechanical spaces that don't have any new occupancies. There are power plants, there are very large MRI or machines, and for example, even backup generators. They do not create any new occupancies or any requirement for new services, but the development charges bylaw, as staff report had gone through, levies a development charge on space that has no occupancy in it. And the development charge bylaw speaks to other provisions, the intent of providing, as an example, bullet point number 2, exemptions for enlargement of industrial buildings that are 50% or less. And when we look at what the intent, not the actual word of the laws, but the intent of the law is to provide expansion for F-type occupancies. And in this particular case, this is exactly what's going on, is we're providing mechanical spaces and parking spaces and lobbies and elevator cores that just help provide internal circulation. The development charges bylaw also provides credits for derelict redevelopment. And, bullet point number 4, I just want to be very brief in 2 minutes, is in other municipalities, and I just use City of Toronto to be an illustrative example of it, because we can go through numerous other ones. But in the City of Toronto, all mechanical spaces are instantly deducted from DCs. And in Richmond Hill, that vehicle doesn't exist. It's just a straight gross floor area from exterior wall to exterior wall is levied, whether the building has 50% mechanical spaces or 5% mechanical spaces. So this is the foundation of our complaint, that the development charges are being levied on spaces. And in our letter of protest, we provided a floor by floor breakdown area, color coded. So you can see that very little of the new addition area actually provides new occupancy, and it's just used for circulation, or, for example, elevators provide accessibility across the floors and don't actually generate more demand for servicing or other utilities. So on that basis, we're looking for an exemption for the development charges that have been already paid, and the ones that we're looking forward to paying or to be exempt from for the next few building permits that include these pedestrian linkages to the parking garage that's being increased and other areas that are being built for additional circulation. So with that, I will close my comments and I'm open to have some more dialogue for discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nicol. So, Mr. Clerk, at this time, we don't normally have the public forum like this. Are we dealing with the item now and then moving on to the rest of the agenda?
Pardon me, to the chair. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So it would be my advice, at least the council does deal with the full public hearing at
Right.
this juncture.
Okay. All right. So at this time, I'm looking for a motion to get the conversation started. We have a staff recommendation to to deny the request. Okay, Councillor Davidson, you'll move that. And did you want to make some comments? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. This clinic is really the first private clinic. Is that right? That this is not a hospital, but you will be doing, I guess I'm asking staff, this clinic, can someone explain exactly for folks what this clinic aims to do and whether it's day surgeries?
Miss Lee, I don't know if that's directed to you or somebody, maybe planning. I don't know. It's my understanding that that is the case.
Okay, I know we all visited, so it was a day surgery. My question is, why would you on day surgeries need an airlift, which I'm assuming is a helicopter? Can I ask the applicant?
There's no airlift helicopter. And this is completely 100% philanthropic. It is not,
Okay, okay.
it's not private.
Okay, thank you.
So I through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask staff, is there any precedent for taxpayers to pick up the DC charges on a private enterprise, whether it's a charity or a nonprofit? Is this regular business for Richmond Hill?
Okay, I think that's Miss Lee.
Through the mayor to Councillor Davidson, no, we have not exempted any development charges in the past. We have, council has considered DC deferral. And even that, we've only had a handful. So the answer is no, we have not exempted development charges.
Right, thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, if we forgive development charges for this enterprise, what is the difference with other businesses that feel equally valid to exist in Richmond Hill to come and ask the same thing? Would that set a dangerous precedent to forgive these DC charges, in your opinion?
Miss Lee.
Through the mayor to Councillor Davidson, my answer would be yes, because there are a lot of different organizations that approach the city for various reasons to request for DC exemption. What we have to understand is within the Development Charges Act, there's no cross subsidization, right? So if we exempt a certain development, we're putting that charge, essentially we're transferring that charge to another funding source that the city will have to pay for because the infrastructure still needs to be built, right? So if DC is so short, then we have to look at another mechanism to raise the exact same funds to provide for the infrastructure.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, what ballpark is the total DC charges that this particular development is looking to be forgiven in total? Is there a rough estimate? Because the remarks from the applicant was that there's the ones they've paid, but also want exception for future.
Through the mayor. So the complaint itself is based on the charges, the DC charges that have already been paid. And that's for the first expansion of the 2,800 square meters. So that's about 235,000. So they do have another expansion that is almost equal in size. So I would say we're probably looking at 235,000, which is what they've paid, plus another 250 to 300, depending on the timing of when they come in.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, just to be clear then, so that would be about $750,000 that the city would have to find that money somewhere else.
Through the mayor, so it's probably roughly total of 500 give or take. So it's what they've paid for this expansion plus the upcoming one. And I do want to clarify, this is, we're only talking about the city development charges.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I need a seconder for that. Councillor Silovitz, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, hold on one sec. Mr. Clerk.
For the record, Mr. Can I clarify that the motion was to receive the correspondence as well as the staff recommendation?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, Councillor Davidson. You basically asked all the questions I was going to ask. The only one that I wanted to ask through you, Mr. Mayor, to our treasurer, Ms. Lee, is has the applicant here asked for a deferral, or is that how they're only asking for an exemption?
Through the mayor to Councillor Silovitz, the request has been for an exemption.
An exemption only.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Well, then I would respectfully suggest to the applicant that perhaps they seek other respite from their from having to pay the development charges, which are entirely necessary to the city, and speak to planning, speak to our treasury staff about a deferral. But I fully support not giving an exemption. There's too many contributing factors that would be negative to our city. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you, the mayor, I do want to ask staff just for a quick clarification on the criteria that would allow for an exemption. And one of the items was indicated was whether the building or structure was deemed derelict, and what the criteria would be to qualify for the exemption. And I'd just like to get an indication as to, when it comes to that particular component, what component was it that, or which criteria component did not get met? Is it possible that there had not been a demolition permit as part of that process? If I could get an answer to that, be appreciated.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the site or the proposed development was approved on a vacant site as it was originally conceived by the original developer. So there was no demolition.
So no actual demolition permit had been requested, so that would be the criteria. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of the staff recommendation, and I think I look at it on two sides. The first one is they're filing a complaint that we are charging them something that we shouldn't be charging. So, and the staff report, page 4, 5, 6, 7, I think staff very, very thoroughly explained it that, we are entitled to charge that development charges. So, in terms of the complaint side of it, I have to support staff because, they have reason with it. But before I go on, I have a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to our treasurer. According to the delegates, one of the delegates, he mentioned about we are different from Toronto. Is there any reason that we are different from Toronto in charging the DC?
Through the mayor to Councillor Liu. So I would say for the most part, municipalities have different development charges bylaws in place, and it's really focused on their own policies as well as the type of development that they're trying to incentivize, right? So from our perspective and historically, we have been charging non-residential at full GFA. So as I mentioned, it's really perhaps it's different. And we also try to align our policies with the region. because we are administering the regional as well as the school board DC. So for the most part, we have to, and we try to be consistent with the region.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have is, what's the next step? So we deny the complaint, and then what can the applicant do in the next step or cannot do? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through the mayor to councillors. So under the Development Charges Act, this is the Section 20 complaint. So the applicant has the right to come to council. So once council makes the decision, should the applicant be not satisfied, they have the ability to go to the OLT to file an appeal with the OLT.
I see. Thank you very much. So as I said, no doubt, this is a very, very unique medical center in Richmond Hill, and it's going to be state of the art. No doubt it comes a long way. And I think, no one in doubt that, we welcome this medical center with open arms. But as I said, I look at it in two sides. The first one is, if it's a complaint, it doesn't warrant a complaint. So I have to support staff. And the other thing is, I hope that we don't have to go to the OLT. I asked the applicant to continue to talk with staff. If you want an exemption or deferral, it should be another avenue, not a complaint. So I look forward to working with the applicant to hopefully we can, have a settlement that happy with both sides. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Regional Local Councillor Chan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I have read the report before the meeting, also hearing delegate. It would be helpful, actually, for me to understand that because the delegates, they mentioned about that this is unique situation, and talking about the DC bylaw, presumably the Richmond Hill DC bylaw, have never anticipated this type of occupancy type. So in this regard, through Mr. Chair, maybe I can get a sense either from Commissioner Kwong or Treasurer Lee. How unique is this unique? Is that we have never contemplated in this city this type of occupancy type? Through you, Mr. Chair. Is the answer to that point raised by the delegate is yes or no?
Okay, Ms. Lee or Commissioner Kwan, which, okay, or Mr. DeMilta.
For you, Mr. Chair, so here is counsel or council. This complaint process is unique in that there's a singular agenda in terms of whether or not the calculation done by staff is in accordance with the bylaw. So policy considerations about what led to the DC bylaw is irrelevant to this process. This is really a mathematical exercise. So is the calculation mathematically correct pursuant to the bylaw? So the determination of council, if council chooses to dismiss the complaint, it should dismiss the complaint on the basis that there was not incorrect determination of the calculation. What Toronto does is irrelevant. Whether or not this development based on the mathematical calculation is correct is the sole determination. And if the applicant or the complainant is not happy with the outcome in terms of council's determination of the mathematical correctness of the determination, then it can appeal to the OLT, which I've done before in terms of mathematical exercise. Did we mathematically get this correct based on the development scheme? So that's why you see in the report that it is strictly on the basis of what's contained in our DC bylaw as it's written. There's no ability for council to change the bylaw on the fly in a Section 20 complaint process. So that's in terms of constraining council's ability to do the determination. Was it mathematically done correct? Is there an exemption that was incorrectly applied to this? And is there anything else in terms of in the mathematical calculation that was done incorrectly to come up to the city portion of it? So, and that's in the staff report, they set out how the calculation was done as it was interpreted by staff. So that's the only thing that council can determine on this. And then the decision should read that it is dismissed on the basis that there was not an incorrect determination of the calculation. So that's something that the council ought to add as a reason on the face of it. Right.
Thank you very much, through Mr. Chair, to the city solicitor's response. I think this is a very key consideration, because that I do understand, and like my colleagues who said things before me, certainly I for one welcome to have this particular center to be there for the day surgery and so on, and also creating jobs for our city. No doubt about it. But when it comes to this particular section 20, that the city solicitor said very well, and this is actually a complaint, and the basis on which is explained very clearly, was there or has there been any error in the calculation? And repeatedly, in addition to the city solicitor just said, the report really indicated on the tables, page 4 to 6, I believe, there was no error. So I think on that basis, I would be in support of the motion in front of us, because that this is not really a basis on which appears to be based on the delegate and the submission with the written correspondence. This is nothing to do with never anticipate the occupancy type. It's strict calculations, as I hear correctly from the city solicitor. So on that basis, Mr. Chair and my colleagues, and I'm in support of the motion in front of us. But as my colleague also said, perhaps there's some other channel the applicant might want, or complainant want to pursue. And like Councilor Neil just said, I honestly hope that this is not a situation we have to incur the city expenses, also the community expenses to go to OLT for this particular purpose, which is really set out very clearly as elaborated by our city solicitor. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, because I really want to bring up the legal basis on this complaint. And I think that makes a material difference. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'll just add a couple of things. So I appreciate that we've got this before us today. There's no question in my mind that, you know, this is an interesting facility that will be providing services to, you know, people in Richmond Hill and well beyond when it's open. And this is a bit of a new concept in the Ontario healthcare system to provide this type of service outside of a hospital. But I think we've laid this out very well, and I must admit the staff report laid out the situation and the facts before us very well, and I think Mr. DeMilta's explanation also added to that as well. You know, it seems to me, well, first of all, let me back up. The development charges pay for growth. That's what they're intended to do. And in total, however a municipality calculates the development charges, it all adds up to being able to pay for the growth that new development represents. So regardless of how Toronto does it or Markham does it or Kenora does it, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a formula. And, everybody that is new growth in the city needs to pay for its share of new growth. And that's the principle behind all of this. Whether or not we have, lobby spaces or waiting rooms or whatever within the spaces, it seems to me that many businesses have, spaces that are lobbies or hallways or that type of thing as well. So I'm not buying the argument that we're hearing here on this. But I guess the larger point is that if there's a funding issue with this group, and the development charges, which I believe are necessary, are that we collect, I'm really thinking that they need to go to the province. Healthcare is not a municipal jurisdiction. I mean, we obviously benefit from it, and we need healthcare facilities in our communities, but we don't collect taxes to fund healthcare. So I'm a little bit surprised that we're seeing this in front of us, but I won't belabor the point, but I do agree with what's been said by my colleagues and what's been said by staff, and I do certainly support the motion that's been put on the floor. So with that, I don't see any additional speakers, Mr. Clerk? Hold on.
Thank you. To council, in respect to the motion, the solicitor made a recommendation that the motion include some additional words. And so I'm going to put something on the screen. And if the mover and a seconder would like to confirm that this was their intent and that council is aligning, that would be
Sure. So mover and seconder, if you just want to, we can consider that as a friendly addition to the motion, if that's acceptable to everybody.
I'm good with that.
Me too.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion before us then. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. So moving on, we have delegations. No, I don't think so. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have delegations on 14.1 first, and the first delegation is Michael Bocott. And this is regarding the pickleball issue. And I see Mr. Bocott is on screen. If you want to turn your camera on, sir, and unmute your microphone, you've got 5 minutes to speak to council. Welcome.
Morning, Council. My name is Mike Bocott. I am the president of the Richmond Hill Pickleball Club and the creator of the Richmond Hill Pickleball Network, Canada's largest and fastest growing network on the free global pickleball network. I'm here today to speak to you on behalf of the members regarding the David Dunlop Observatory Park Pickleball Hub. I want to point out, I don't want to get into too much of the growth stats. I think we all are aware that pickleball is growing faster than anybody could have thought possible. But it is not a fad. Its growth is unprecedented for many reasons that are obvious, and more so for the reasons that are not obvious. I'd be happy to get into that later, but I did send you all an email this morning just outlining some of the facts and figures that are happening here, right here in Richmond Hill, that we've experienced over the last 2 years, right at the grassroots level. And if time permits, I will get into and be happy to discuss the Richmond Hill Pickleball Network and its genesis. But I'm just going to go through some bullet points here because I know my time is limited here and I usually run over. So I just want to point out that there are over 3,000 plus members, or staff indicated there were over 3,000 plus members in the Richmond Hill active database for pickleball programming. Most programs are offered on weekdays, and obviously for those that are older and able to take advantage of them, they can, but those that are working are really left with no or few options. We definitely need more pickleball programming during prime time for indoor use. Richmond Hill pickleball programs are sold out as soon as they are posted. If you query the site today, you'll see they're all sold out for the summer here. There are maybe 1 or 2 spots available. This has been the case for the last year, and I think staff would back that up. Stouffville, Markham have just built 8 outdoor pickleball courts. Newmarket has 6. Newmarket has capped their membership at 185 members. Most of their members are non-residents, and the demand for outdoor courts is obviously going through the roof. Barrie just approved 8 more courts. There are numerous examples of when you build 5, 6, 7 courts within a year or 2, you're building 10 more courts. There are no large dedicated multi-court indoor or outdoor courts in York Region. Municipalities with outdoor courts are being asked to provide indoor courts because the growth is so strong. That is not addressed in this report, and I would like to obviously have that addressed. The growth is exponential. Richmond Hill needs more dedicated pickleball courts. Paul Massaro, the Executive Director of Infrastructure and Engineering, stated recently in a Liberal article that the city's research backs this up. There are 81 dedicated tennis courts, 1 per 1,600 residents in Richmond Hill. There are 2 dedicated pickleball courts, 1 per 107,000 residents. Most tennis courts sit empty throughout the weekdays, while pickleball courts are actively used. In all municipalities where they have them, they are actively used throughout the day. The city has added lines on 1 tennis court at Grovewood and Morgan Boyle Park, but they are rarely used by the pickleball players, because you can't program there and it's hard to organize. Pickleball is a social sport where you get a lot of people coming to the courts at the same time. The pop-up courts at Richmond Green were rarely used due to uneven playing surfaces last year and a lack of shade. I pointed that out at last year's council meeting, but we're happy to say that, the council is actually, or the city has actually resurfaced those courts. So we're actually going to be trying them out this weekend. I'll give you some more details on that in a minute. Kings College Park has 2 dedicated pickleball courts that are busy every day, most days, every day. People come there, they camp out for 2 to 3 hours. They have the shade covers, they have the grass, they play for 50 minutes and they sit for 45. It's also the source of complaints that Councillor Shu is currently dealing with and Councillor Chan had dealt with in the past because the courts are located close to residents. The city is proposing to build 4 dedicated courts at Bayview Hill. This will be very close to nearby residents. And when completed, those courts will be busier than KCP courts, Kings College Park courts, because they are going to be highly sought after courts. We should be learning from the experiences of other municipalities, and we should be looking at a large multi-court facility because we know when we build 5 or 10, we're going to need 10 or 20. When we take a look at David Dunlop Observatory Park, some have stated that that park is not meant for pickleball courts. It's an intellectual park, whatever that means, I'm not sure. The reality is the growth in pickleball is unprecedented. We need to have more courts, and we need to do it in a wise manner where we locate these courts in places that are suitable, that are away from residents, and can be converted to indoor with structures. There are structures out there we could adopt and use. We have to think this through, and I understand why you're pausing it, because these are very important questions that we need answered, but we need to be involved with the process. And to do that, I just want to point out that we are holding an event this Saturday at Richmond Green. It's called Pickle Fest, and I would like to invite all the councillors out to this. Come and see it. Come and experience our Learn to Play program. Come and speak with the residents whose lives have been impacted by this game. This is not a game. It's not a sport. It's more than that to a lot of people. I've lived it for the last 2 years. When I started offering free lessons at Town Park in the summer of 2021.
Okay,
that's why
Mr. Boca, you're going to wrap up.
Yes, I'm getting there. I think it's really important that if you haven't played the game or haven't spoken to people who have played the game, if you could come out to the Pickle Fest this Saturday, you're all welcome. Bring your shorts, come and play. We'll show you what the game's all about. You can speak to residents firsthand and see how it has impacted their lives. This is one of the best investments this city can make, and I can provide you with a lot more details.
Thanks very much, Mr. Boca. I appreciate the delegation as always. Thank you. Okay, the next person to delegate is Justin Lin. Same item, the pickleball item. Mr. Lin, I see you on screen. If I could just ask delegates, we have a really, really full agenda today. And in fairness to everybody that's waiting to speak, if we can really make an effort to keep it as close to 5 minutes as possible. So go ahead, Mr. Lin.
Good morning, everyone. Councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Justin Lin, and today I would just like to share some information on how important the proposed pickleball courts will be at the DDO and how pickleball has and will continue to help many individuals, including myself. So as Mike already covered a lot of the points of why pickleball is such a growing sport, demanding sport, and the importance of an indoor or outdoor facility. So I'll skip over that for now to save some time. So my main point is that now that kids and teens, they've become accustomed to spending most of their time indoors with limited social interaction, and pickleball is one of the best ways to meet new people and expand social circles. Pickleball is not only a sport, but it's a way to get out there, exposed, and build connections in the real world. Myself included, I was one of those people, teens and young adults, who was primarily spending most of my free time indoors. And since I've started playing pickleball 8 months ago, now I spend upwards of 5 hours a week outdoors, and I've met countless new people and built lasting connections. Additionally, pickleball helps with mental health, is easily accessible to all athletic levels, and is very enjoyable at all levels of play. This type of experience is not seen in many other sports, And throughout my time playing, I've heard numerous stories of people going through tough times and using pickleball as an outlet to clear their mind and relax. This is due to the nature of the sport. Since it is relatively easy to learn and play, it makes it accessible to many kinds of people, and it allows newcomers to quickly grasp the basics and start enjoying the sport. This provides them with a sense of accomplishment as they're improving fast, which helps improve their mood, reducing stress and anxiety levels. So whether you're a young adult, a senior citizen, or somewhere in between, pickleball offers an enjoyable experience for people of all ages. In closing, Richmond Hill needs a dedicated facility to meet the growing demand of our residents and beyond. Our neighboring cities, Stouffville and Markham, have had their courts both built already, and we have yet to start. On behalf of the teens and young adults, I ask the council to reevaluate their stance on the proposed pause of the pickleball courts at the DDO. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lin. Appreciate that. So we'll move on to the delegates from the 15.2.6. The first delegate that we have is Howard Doty. And Howard, I see you here in person. Welcome as always, sir.
Thank you kindly. And good morning to councillors, Mr. Mayor, assembled others. I sense a certain tension in the room. I sense that there was a little demonstration before the doors, before the meeting. And the issue before you here is controversial. But happily, I was able to consult with a Druid seer over the weekend and get a projection for what was going to happen in the next few years. Happy to report that in 2 years, 10 months, and 24 days, if not sooner, Doug Ford will be resigning as Premier of Ontario, and a stylish Merritt Stiles leading an NDP to a renewed victory boiled up by Olivia Chow's excellent performance as Mayor of Toronto will take over. A renewed Liberal Party will regain its party status and will triple its membership in the House. And even the Greens will triple their membership. And all three parties will join together in a cooperative new coalition to restore Toronto and Ontario, and maybe even Richmond Hill. But that's the future. What I see today is that Richmond Hill is facing a serious set of problems. And those problems are primarily the responsibility of Bill 23. Most of you, I believe, oppose in part or in whole most of the provisions of that bill. But some of you are concerned. You're concerned that if you turn down the current proposal, the developer will appeal, and it will cost a lot of money, and you will inevitably lose. Others are worried that the Premier will retaliate. He could even dissolve Richmond Hill as a city. He could dissolve York Region. He managed to cut democracy in half in Toronto, and he could redo all of that or more. So instead of playing defense, I wonder if it would not be possible to set out, instead of reacting to development proposals, a set of minimal standards. Perhaps you could require developers to put the environment first, to alter the existing plan so that the initial action on the part of developers would be to meet your standards, not yours to accommodate them. I know that you've come some distance in that direction. Your 2031 housing target pledge was craftily aspirational. You cite everything from supply chain issues to interest rates as obstacles that may make it impossible to achieve your goals. And you'll be right. This isn't going to happen. This 10-year plan is not going to happen as it exists now, partly because there will be a change of government. You also reference the role of markets, limiting Richmond Hill's capacity to regulate. Why not reverse the dynamic? Why not also just go slow? There needs to be a change in the culture and the attitude of the people participating in this process. Staff need to learn to listen better, and citizens need to become more articulate, focused, and positive in their recommendations. But I think that participatory collaboration among elected politicians, appointed staff, professionals, and the public generally can not only establish a workable plan for growth, but can make them realistically fit with the Premier's wish list, or at least seem to. Meanwhile, the developers' plans, not only in the case before us, but for example, in the high-tech TOC, will fail. Please read James Bourne's book, When in Doubt Mumble, A Bureaucrat's Handbook. Please binge watch Yes, Minister. And when you come out of that experience, perhaps we'll be able to work together to slow down, stop, and eventually watch with glee the reversal of the forward agenda. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mr. Davies. Okay, the next delegate is Alex Wong. Welcome, Alex. Just pull the mic down a little bit, perhaps.
Sorry for being short.
No, it's compact and fuel efficient. It's not short. You're in vogue now. Go ahead.
Okay, let's start the clock. Well, let me introduce myself, Alex. I'm the first time that I speak in front of this council in person after my first delivery and the discussion of Richmond Hill Center secondary plan. And in that the delegation, I have mentioned the presentations by Professional Engineers Ontario on traffic problems in GTA, and the finding by the research lab in a university in Switzerland. So I'm not going to repeat that general traffic votes mentioned before. Regarding this particular development application, I can draw on my own observations on the traffic condition in that particular area, as I have operated Route 99, Young Bus, and 80, Route 80 on Elgin Mills. So I can give you my observation in a sense that that area is not a good area to drive during rush hours, and traffic backups are a norm. As a result, I saw more and more dangerous driving maneuverings by drivers, cutting in and out, swerving in front of other drivers just to beat the long queue of cars using the roads. The effect of the congestion in that areas have also spilled into neighborhood intersection like Elgin Mills, Bathurst, Bayview, and Leslie. I can say that it's a fact that our transportation infrastructures are not adequate in supporting population growth. The transportation study by LEA Consulting for the town of Richmond Hill back in 2015 also support that claim. And we are now in 2023 with a lot of more people in the city and in the area. So just do the calculations. I would say that let's not worship about growth blindly, as growth, even financial growth or economic growth, has been recognized by lately economists that it's not always good. Nobody wants growth, like, for example, a tumor growth, which this development is part of their subset. It is correct for everybody to say that these crazy developments are a result of the current provincial government's policies. I can understand why Doug Ford's party implement all this developer-friendly policy because it's logical thing to do for political arm for the wealthy. The problem here is these developments are hurting residents by worsening their quality of life, and we all have to pay more in the future to battle the problems that's created. I believe this council and most of you are aware of the disasters waiting to happen with this sky is the limit development application. But let's not give up simply by saying our hands are tied by the province. Non-resistant is not an option to save the city. It only emboldens crazier development applications. I would urge the council to look into setting up disincentives against high rises. If we fight and we lose, put up an open letter explaining to the citizen of Richmond Hill why. And I would also like to see if the council can put up some kind of guidelines for the planning department to take a different approach, look through the eyes of the residents rather than the developers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wong. The next delegate we have is Max Haroon. Welcome, Mr. Haroon.
Thank you. His Worship, Mayor David and the councillors. I got this precious time to speak, so I'll make sure that whatever I say will make you think twice. I have an alternate solution for the emergency exit, which is a crucial point we are discussing for the residents. Now, before I talk about that, I'd like to perhaps change the role. If I were the council and if I had traffic problem, what would I do? I will put speed bumps on the blind corner. I will prohibit school buses parking on our street. Restriction of parking on one side of the street. Strict enforcement of the speed. There is a blind corner and that has 20-kilometer speed and it's never been observed. And we have seen 2 accidents in the past. Now, the reason I say that if I were the council, because you would have specified the resident at least for the traffic and congestion problem. So I'll respectfully ask the council to implement the above, regardless of what happens to the development, regardless of the emergency acting. Now, let's think outside the box. Instead of opening the emergency exit on the north side of the site, why don't we open on the south side of the site? Admittedly, this does not belong to Sabela Ridge, but it has remained vacant for a long, long time. It may be necessary to negotiate with the land owner, which is Rudy Granata, for its acquisition. While the developer may have previously, may have previously approached the owner, but now the situation may have changed. And I think he is quite willing to sell it for a price. By acquiring this land south of the lot, the developer could not only open emergency exit, but also can have a small park and and this will establish them as a responsible corporate citizen. This would undoubtedly enhance the reputation within our community. To articulate the importance of rejecting or significantly revising the proposed plan, I urge you to consider the following crucial points. Number one, the city has been long struggling with the image Richmond Hill has. It's like a sleepy town. If that is the case, our primary focus should be development of the commercial and employment development, which will improve the quality of life rather than prioritizing the residential growth. Number two, the city already has abundance of residential projects and plans, making it irrational to convert the scarce commercial land on Young Street, which we are talking about, into residential development. Number three, this location is unsuitable for high density development. Why? Because it fails to consider the interest and concern of the local resident, as well as it contradicts the built form principles and also the constraints of environmental and other bottlenecks of traffic. So I would say this plan is fundamentally flawed as it contradicts established built form principles and fails to consider the interests and concern of the local resident. Lastly, and utmost importance, the council should prioritize the protection of our neighborhood over the interest of the developer. We voted you to represent us, not the developer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the next delegate is Wafa Gurgis. I hope I said that right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. You've got 5 minutes to address council.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We are resident of Greek View Avenue and Arten Street, and we are against the high-rise building in our street. This is because of making access from this building to our street. Our street is very quiet, very narrow street. They have only 2 lanes, one in and one out. And this existing building, we're gonna make more traffic and more congestion to this area. And it's not necessary for every high building to have access to 3 streets. I don't know why. Most of the high buildings, they have access from 1 street only. And this is ridiculous to have this one. In residential area, which is very quiet area, we pay a lot of money to have this quiet area. If we not agree about that one, why we can move to the Toronto, but now we choose Richmond Hill because of this situation. And something else I want to ask, did you already, the council and this meeting made already an environmental and traffic study on this project? And if it's not, I think why you approved this project. I think 2 years ago, I think Mr. Mayor, when he is a councillor, he say he's gonna say no to this building. And now he changed his mind and say, yes, I don't know why. It's shame to you, Mr. Mayor, and your councillor to vote against residents' well. Shame on you to take this builder. Builder side against us, your people. We are the one paying you the salary, not the builder. We are the people vote for you, not the builder. So, Mr. Mayor and your councillor vote against us. Don't expect anyone from our area or Elgin Mills or Young Street to vote again with you or put any single sign in our law. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next delegation is Gangwa Chen. Okay, is Gangwa Chen here?
Actually, in fact, he's not available.
Okay, well, Mr. Lee, you're a delegate later on, so if you want to have a seat.
Delegate. I'm just play a video for him. He wanted me to play a video for him. That's all.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, excuse me.
Yeah, you just me play the video. That's all.
Okay, well, come on up. Then come on up.
Please project this one. Okay, thank you. Just, you don't need to do anything. Just click the button. Yeah.
I don't know, do we? I'm not sure that we have the.
Please project this screen first, okay?
Mr. Lee, excuse me, do we have is that something we can do?
Nothing.
28 stories is a very high building. It's a lot higher than the official plan calls for. The problem going into here that this needs to be addressed is if this building is free. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This isn't a flood zone.
Actually, can start project this video. So basically, residents has a right to speak, and also you should, I think, basically reflect what they want to express. Yeah, just click the button. So can you do this? Otherwise, we're too ugly, you know. You try to silence residents. You try to.
You'll have your time to be the delegate. If you want to have a seat, that would be great. Thank you very much.
I'm just trying.
That's fine. He's the delegate right now, not you.
But he can't speak English. That's why someone can translate whatever he says.
Taken care of and addressed in order for anything, frankly, to be developed in there, let alone something that's double the height index. That's allowed in the official plan. 28 stories is a very high building. It's a lot higher than the official plan calls for, almost done. The problem that we run into here that needs to be addressed is if this building is approved, it would set a precedent. I mean, there is a lot of corridor area in between key development areas. And if we have 28 plus story buildings, I'm not sure how we would handle that. So that in and of itself provides a significant concern for me from a wider community point of view. And I think the other general theme that we're hearing in this application that's far outside of what the official plan currently says, this is not in line with the expectation that people have when they move to Richmond Hill. You know, because we have got obligations for the province to accommodate growth. We have a plan that does accommodate that growth, but we need to stick to the plan. Approving something like this that's so far over the line is setting a very dangerous precedent. I can't be in favor of this. So it would be my hope that we would be able to discuss this with the developer and come down to a far more reasonable level of application that is in line with the official plan. A 15-story building, I suspect, would have no problem meeting the parking requirements. The problem is that in that area, the residents are right. The overflow parking will absolutely be in that community on Arden and Creekview because they can't park on Yonge Street. They do talk in the staff report about having an adequate transition between a very high building and a single family home community. I don't think that that's been addressed well in this application. The problem with the building in a flood vulnerable area at this moment is that you're pushing the problem out into areas that don't currently have flooding problems. I would be concerned about that, and that's incredibly important. We deal with that. So I think, Mr. Mayor, I would be happy to see this application come in at somewhere very close to what is proposed in the official plan. I think it would be a good application at that point, and it would be something, frankly, that we would be expecting on Yonge Street. But the height and the density that we're talking about here is so far above and beyond what's contemplated in the plan, and I think it will affect the whole of the plan as well as just this neighborhood.
That's a shame. That's a shame.
Okay, thank you. The next person on the agenda is Danny Pollock. Mr. Pollock, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, good morning to everybody here, councillors, mayor. I have a few issues to mention. Let's start with number one, Yonge Street, the most important street in Canada, the longest street in Canada. Should be a nice street with nice magazines, nice stores. What they did in North York is a disaster. They build monster buildings that take away the sun, take away the air that we breathe with those monster buildings. Now you want to do it in Richmond Hill. We moved to Richmond Hill. We paid a lot of money here to move to Richmond Hill to have a better life than in Toronto. Mind you, we're paying 3 times the taxes than Toronto, similar houses are paying. Okay, we pay 3 times more, and I can prove it 1-to-1 on lot sizes and house sizes. So we pay more. What do we get for it? Much less services than Toronto provide the residents. So we get less.
Okay, can I ask people, we have a delegate speaking, we're letting everybody speak. Go ahead, Mr. Pollock.
So we pay 3 times more taxes. We get 3 times less services, or maybe more than 3 times. So that doesn't make any sense. Number 2, Mr. Castro, you said before that we are different than Toronto. I don't see in which way we are different than Toronto. I see that we are paying more, as I stated. We get less. But in which way we are different? We bought the properties on Arden and on Creekview with dear money, and we paid much more than any other street in Richmond Hill for those properties. Those are custom-built homes. Now you want to put us a 25-story building that will exit to our street? Where is the logic behind it? I don't understand. Where is the logic behind it? And you want them to exit to Arden. I approached the mayor. I sent the email to the mayor and to the city few times requesting speed bumps. Nobody put speed bumps. But should be a fatality of a child on our street, I'll be the first one to sue the city. I promise. Because people are speeding day and night on the street. It became a racetrack. I tried to get with my phone picture until I get the phone from my pocket. The guy is already on another street. People are speeding on Arden. It's ridiculous the way they drive there, and nobody is doing nothing. Why? What are you waiting for? It doesn't make any sense. The other thing is, there is staff report. Who is the staff and what do they know about development like that? Did they check about Creekview? Why the street name is Creekview? Did they check what's coming to us with all the issues involved in that area? No. So just to approve something and then regret it, it doesn't make any sense. Better think twice before you cut. Measure twice, then you cut. And another thing is the speeding I mentioned, the study I mentioned. So I think the rest of it should be done by other delegates here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next delegate is David Zhang. David, I see you there.
Okay.
You're unmuted. Go ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to speak. And before I just start, I would like to ask the operator to not mute the voice just in case there's additional noise, so I can include the proper pauses. To begin, I would like to point out that in order for me to speak today as a delegate, I had to provide a new point that was not shared in the previous council meeting. And I think that's very inappropriate for this council meeting. And here's my new point that we all fail to consider, even the council and the staff report, is that York Region's transit plan does not allow traffic onto Yonge Street. And what does that mean? This 25-story building's car flow onto Yonge Street is a direct contradiction to York Transit's massive investment into its transit plan. You're working directly against York Region's transit plan. We're wasting money here. We're wasting taxpayers' money. All the cars flowing onto the congested Yonge Street will just add to the congestion and work against the public transit system. It's not going to work. Now let's look at the more likely result, right? Maybe the developer's goal is to have these traffic flow onto the residential road. Now imagine 200 plus cars flowing onto a residential road that was not designed for 200 plus cars. Maybe it was only for 50. And even then, it's not enough already. It's already not enough. We cannot turn onto Elgin Mills. So what can we do with 200 cars? A lineup, a pileup? This is unheard of. What's more appalling is that this proposal hides its true intention and disguises it as an emergency exit. Everybody can see that. Everybody knows that. And the council just hides it, sweeps it under the rug. Okay? In addition, there's no traffic study done. In order for this to happen, right? We cannot, you already cannot turn on to Elgin Mills. Now let's take another closer look at the developer's proposal here. It doesn't even indicate how many units it's going to have. It doesn't even have how many parking spots it will have. Why? Because they know once we see that's exactly how many cars will flow onto Arton. So I would like to ask the mayor and the council to be the voice of the community. And you are hearing us today, before, and today again. This draft isn't even complete and you're approving this. There's no flood study, there's no traffic study, and it touches upon freshwater system. None of the required due diligence is done. What's more, why is it that I need to come up with a new issue to become a delegate? Is it just to silence the community on how angry we are? We move the council to remove this requirement on the delegation until we have some answers to these questions. And we're asking flood study, traffic study on Arton, and freshwater system protection. These are all very important to the community. Approving this incomplete draft only demonstrates a lack of due diligence on the council's part, on the city part, and on you, Mr. Mayor. You held our hand as shown in the video, and you told us that you were against this high-rise. And now you know our voice. You were voted in to be the voice of the community, and you're going against it. So you already heard our voice. You responded to our voice, and now you're just turning a blind eye. And also, you're working to silence the community's voice by requiring us to bring a new issue to become a new delegate. This is directly opposed to the values that we founded this country on. We're here to stay, we're here to make a stand, and we're not going away. And the community voice is no. This building it does not stand to approve. It's not even, the proposal isn't even complete. So please remove the requirement and please do some studies on the report. And we're asking for flood study and we're asking for traffic study, at least on Arten, right? Before that, please remove the requirement for bringing up a new issue on delegation. Thank you, council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that's it from me. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you very much. The next delegate is Mark Wang. Welcome.
Good morning, Councillor. Good morning, my neighbor. We send out the questionnaire on WeChat and WhatsApp social media to get an opinion on this high-rise proposal from our neighbor communities. Within 2 days, we got 85 valid responses saying they against this high-rise building proposal. I gave this list to Mayor West on July 4th before last week council meeting. People are sending a clear message to the Richmond Hill Council. We do not want a 25 floors high-rise building on this tiny piece of land. The elephant in this room here is not Ontario Land Tribunal, not provincial guideline. The elephant in the room is here, the angry voice from our neighbor in the community, the voice from the Mill Pond residents, the voice from 2022 Richmond Hill election vote result. Canada is a representative democracy. What is a representative democracy? It is a system where citizens of the country vote for the government representative to handle legislation and ruling the countries on their behalf. In 2022, Councillor David West from Ward 2 got 28,318 votes to become the mayor of Richmond Hill because he said no to this unreasonable developer applicants during his campaign. People put you in the position to expect you to represent our voice to say no to these applicants. Now, your supporters are asking, what made you change your mind to say yes to these applicants? The problem you mentioned 2 years ago that high-rise applicants bring to this community has not been solved or addressed. Are you still representing the voters' voice from the Mill Pond communities? Where is the representative democracy? This council decision on this application ignore concerns from the community, which makes people angry. We will not go away. We will raise money online to go to OLT to fight with you. We will let more people know this and get more people involved in this petition.
Exactly.
We will continue to fight for our rights. Next time when you are running your campaign, do not knock our doors. Do not put your sign in front of our house. We do not send your flyers to our communities. You are not representing the people in the community. You are not welcome in our communities.
Okay, thank you. The next delegate is Tom Munch. Welcome, Mr. Munch.
Good day, everybody. I'm not going to have enough time to go through, but I gladly will talk to you afterwards. I'm going to the political agenda, but I'm going to say this application today has far-reaching ramifications for this council and for the community. And I'll try to get to each one of your wards how it is going to be impacted on how you vote. This application cannot be approved today on its technical, planning, and good governance reasons. In no particular order, I'm going to start with the floodplain. Creekview is properly named because there's a floodplain. In fact, if you look, in fairness to the 4 newer counselors, they may not know this, but there's no excuse not to know, because the staff report should say it. What is the flood remediation cost to that area? Anybody know? $60 to $80 million. You expect the residents to pay $60 to $80 million for flood remediation? Oh, but this report says they're taking away the buffer zone. Really? You're going to take away the buffer zone on Creekview in the area? No study, no disclosure. Staff said it meets the criteria for 0, no explanation. Has that been done anywhere else? And if it's being done here, are you going to do this for every other application? Because I'm telling you now, every council meeting and every report is read, and we're mobilizing. So if what you do today will be precedent setting for every application and every applicant, and I will personally let every applicant know, and we'll be taping and mobilizing. Fair forewarning. TDM measures, transportation demand measures. 263 parking spots. 160 plus bicycles. Where's auto share? Where's ride share? Where's scooters? How's it being laid out? What about compact cars? Not mentioned in the report. Guess you don't care about cars and traffic, because at 247 units at 263 parking is more than a 1-to-1 ratio. How is that with a $3.8 billion debt at York Region for transit, and people are traffic impatient? This is on a transit corridor, and this council is not supporting a transit-orientated development in a transit corridor. They're going exactly the opposite. More cars, and then they want the cars to go into a residential neighborhood, not onto the major artery. Why is that? Not Doug Ford, not the region. You people and this council are making that decision. And you're not going to be able to snowflake anybody here, because we all know, believe me, we're mobilizing. You have no idea. So where's the traffic study? Is there any traffic study for these 263 vehicles plus others that are coming back and forth into a residential neighborhood? Is it this council's position going forward that development on Yonge Street should be exiting onto inner roads? What's traffic going to be like? Oh, don't worry. Traffic and development are key. What about transit-oriented communities? I've heard people say, I'm the subway counselor. I hear people saying, we're talking about Highway 7 in Yonge. Does this meet transit-oriented community standards? Does it say so in the report? No. Should the new council members not demand that? Shame on you. For those that aren't new, and there's no place to say new, because new has a nice little 60-day flag. You're well beyond 60 days. It's time to step up, and you will be held accountable. So what's going to happen on Bloomington and Regatta when development comes through in all those areas? We're going to be using this as a benchmark and looking at the comparison and going, where else? We'll be looking at what takes place along Yonge Street and Church. We'll be looking along Leslie. Here's another little phrase: housing affordability. If I hear that term from any member of council saying, what is the cost of the parking spot? Does anybody know? Let me give you a number. Starts at $60,000 a unit. At 263 parking spots, how is that helping with housing affordability? At $3.8 billion investment on transit, this council is not transit, is not environmentally focused, is not focusing on housing affordability, hurting the residents for traffic without a traffic study, without TDM measures, without any disclosure, without buffer zone, not in the report. Why is it that the council is changing their mind? There are 5 members of council. Mayor West, as councillor, you champion NIMBYism. We don't want growth. It's not the province. We met 70% of the growth. This council and some of the old members championed to say, we don't want housing. Well, this development should be transit oriented, reduce the parking, get the study, get the responsible growth, look at affordability, get it right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sharon Yuan is our next delegate. Sharon Yuan.
Okay, can I present here?
On the metal. Oh, sorry, I
Sure.
can't see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's a quote. Mayor West. You were against high rise in 2017 and 2020. And I have two quotes here regarding this project. First is approving. Can you use this, please?
We can see it.
You can see it. It's
Yeah.
different. It's not the same. Yeah, yeah, okay. So approving something like this, that's so far over. You don't see it? Can you zoom in? Is it able to zoom in? No? Okay, I'll read it. Okay. Approving something like this far over the line is setting a very dangerous precedent, and I can't be in favor of this. This is your first call. And I have the second one with a vote for mayor picture here. The problem with this building is a flat vulnerable area is that you could pushing the problem out into areas that you don't currently have the flooding problem. So, Mr. Mayor, what has definitely changed since you've gotten the vote of the mayor? Tell us. Okay, Councillor Carol Davidson, you are integrity journalist for many, many years. It took you 3 months to visit all your ward's homes. And when you did the election, will you listen to the community this time? As we're already here, you don't have to knock the doors. Okay. Mr. Michael Hsu, you were against this 24-story building in your ward. Why do you support this 25-story building in such a heavy traffic congestion, extremely narrow land, and flood vulnerable area? What's the point? Deputy Mayor Godwin Chan. In 2020, as Richmond Hills Ward 6 representative, you expressed your hope that the provincial government should consider the wishes from the community. Would you consider the wishes from our community too? Councillor Scott Thompson, on your voting page, you said it's time to elect someone who is willing to represent the actual needs of the residents. And Scott Thompson is someone who listens to the residents. Will you do this time? Councillor Castillo, you are keen on road safety and house affordability. How can you approve the projects that don't have a valid traffic report and with a question mark of the validity of affordable houses given to the need ones? How are you going to do that? And also, can we please address this meeting is called soon after the last one? And all of the previous issues are left unaddressed. In addition, delegates here are required to bring new concerns and new issues. So what's the result? The more meetings you have, the less people will become delegates. And then people are getting exhausted. Is that the final result that the city is going to build? This is not acceptable. This practice is directly against the principle of freedom of speech. We ask the council to provide more notice for further council meetings and to remove all the requirements for the delegates to bring new issues. Here's a list of what the resident was asked for. A proper traffic study on having a 25-story building on the flow to Arton and Creekview Road. Have a study done on the impact of flood zone and appoint the party responsible for the future flood damages. That's very, very important. Having an economy study on whether or not a 25 residence building will really helpful in this community compared to a commercial building. You always mention we need commercials, we need job opportunities, but why you turn into a commercial building into a residential if you need job opportunities and commercials? Will that help? And having a proper environmental study done and have protection set up for our drinking water system, sewage system, and foundation settlement study. That's very, very important to our neighborhood. No exits in neighborhood residential area. That's my team.
Okay, thank you very much. The next delegate is John Lee.
Good morning, everyone.
Just pull the mic up, Mr. Lee. There you go.
Good morning, everyone. The council, residents, city planners, and applicant have had numerous discussions regarding the regionality of this plan. In fact, a few years ago, one councillor had an excellent summary of why this plan is a flawed. I think all the delegation can be, take out. This one councillor's summary already cover all the issues. First, what for Councillor Daisy West point out, this is a flood vulnerable area, and there are significant issues to address and take care of for any development, let alone doubling the height and the density of the official plan. Second, if a 28-story building is approved, it will set a precedent and raising significant concern from a wide community perspective. Third, Councillor West said, it's not in line with the expectation people have when they leave or move to Richmond Hill. We have a plan that aligns with the provincial population growth, and we should stick with it. Number 4, Councillor West said, to approve something like this is so far over the line, and it sets a dangerous precedent. It set a dangerous precedent. David West, the former Ward 4 councillor, said, I cannot be in favor of this. I cannot be in favor of this. Councillor West said. Number 5, it's my hope, it's Councillor West's hope, that the developer will come down to a far more reasonable level, in line with the 15-story official plan. Councillor David West said. Number 6, the residents are correct. Overflow parking will absolutely burden the community. Overflow parking will absolutely burden the community, will burden their street. And as they cannot park on the Young Street. So parking is an issue for the community. Number 7, Councillor West said, there should be an adequate transition between very high buildings and single-family communities. But this issue has not been addressed. Number 8, the issue with building in flooding area is that it will push the problem to areas that currently don't have flooding issues. This is what Councillor West said. Number 9, I hope this plan will be revised. Councillor West said he hopes this plan will be revised to align very closely with the official plan on height. The height is 15 stories. And density FSI is 2. So basically right now, double the height and the density. Because what Councillor West said, he recognized and received great recognition from the community. In the 2022 municipal election, the residents living in this area belong to subdivision 428. 74% of residents vote for David West as mayor. 74%. So basically, 330 residents cast their vote. 224 vote for him. Is this plan a reasonable plan? At least a decade ago, the town already have traffic study. They already show this area has traffic bottleneck, both on young Aggie Mills and young Major Mackenzie. See the map here, the dot point is the, I think, site. The town of Richmond Hill study already point out young
John,
Aggie Mills.
Mr. Lee, your time is up. So can you wrap up, please?
So is already over capacity. The last one. You oppose our development to win your seats. Why are you now approving more than those you replace? Again.
Okay, thank you very much.
You win your seats because you over development.
Mr.
Right now you're doing more than the people you replace.
Mr. Lee, your time is up. Thank you. Okay, the next person is Christina Tao.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm a little sick today, but try to talk for some data and facts. Because so my first opinion. So we have like more than 1,000 people. So sorry, I want to show some data. So this page is that this project. The name of it on the petition is 1,320 people against this project, and the minutes residents spoke is about 90 people. So the written submission is 65 people, and the total verbal statement is 26 people. So we have this data for against this project. Secondly, I want to talk about the Richmond Hill already approved residential application sufficient to accommodate project population goals in Richmond Hill by 2051. Richmond Hill already has a.
Christina, just move back from the mic a bit. It's very windy.
Okay, is it better now?
You're gonna hold it down. Just don't make your mouth so close to it.
Okay, sure. Is it better now?
That's better.
Okay, sorry about that. So Richmond Hill already has a surplus of residential plans projects designed to meet the project population goals over the next 20 years. I was mentioned 2051 already overpopulated. So right now, this including development at Young Highway 7, and we just met some neighbors. They won against the project 42 storage, and Young 16 and Young Bernard. So given this, it appears like we actually don't need any more in the Young corridor for the residential development. I propose we should build as a previous plan, like commercial building, low rise, and create more job opportunities instead of 25 storage condo. Yeah, and also this thirdly, I want to say about 45% affordability housing. That is a purpose to increase the height from the 15th floor bylaw instead of 25 storage and increase the density. This actually is there is no concrete measure in place to prevent developer from exploring this affordable house unit for profit through resale. And as we know, affordable house should be like low income people, but I don't think the new build condo, they can provide 45%. Standard number is 10% and 15% to 15%. So this no excuse to build such a high rise building in the neighborhood. And the fourth thing I want to say is our neighborhood is not a KDA. It's a lot along like a public transit area. So we cannot afford like parking that much. We have so many serious parking like car accident in that corner, Young, Arton and Creekview. And recently the The last and not the least, the statement is we have a flood, we are flood vulnerable area. And there is not possible to change from 10 meter to 0 meter buffer zone. Our neighbor living here since 1993, he hasn't reached yet, it's for this meeting, but he told me he did a lot of flood issue at basement once there is like heavy raining. So Creekview is under pressure for the lot of issue and problem. And yesterday we measured the roadway. It's very narrow. It's not standard to not even parking 2 or 3 cars in the same time. So the last statement I want to say is I hope you guys don't make a decision today. The best way is a referral motion to postpone the decision and listen to more voice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next delegate is Perusa Samurai. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I was crossed out. Then the last delegate is Robert Livingstone. Welcome, Mr. Livingstone.
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councilors. Thanks for including me on the agenda today. There's a lot of anger in this room, clearly. And full disclosure, I spent a lot of my career as a journalist covering angry people at city councils. I've seen a lot of it right around the world. And, you know, these meetings are long and boring. None of us want to be here. Well, none of us want to be here anyways. And but today I'm here as a resident of Arden Avenue. There's many reasons for this anger and for anger that I've been talking about. And the root cause is almost always because of poor or lacking public consultation. When people aren't engaged in the community, then they engage inside city council. And that's why you're hearing us today, and we don't feel we've been listened to or engaged properly. That's definitely the case here. So just as a bit of a background, I mean, this file was open, or at least we knew about it in 2020. The zoning poster was put up near the property on Arden there. And we got letters in the mail. We had a public consultation meeting, standard kind of thing, and we had that public hearing in I guess, well, it was online at the time. But we didn't have a lot of information, and we set up a small group at the time for us to reach out to city councilors. We set up individual meetings. A lot of you or who were on the council then were accommodating. We tried to engage with the developer. There wasn't much success there. We had a meeting with one of your former councilors that was less than comfortable for us because there were some developers lurking who were uninvited and unannounced, and the councillor said he had some kind of connection with them, and he urged us not to pursue this. He said it wouldn't. It was a foregone conclusion. So at that moment, all credibility was lost. We didn't have a lot of confidence in any of that consultation that had been going on, and then, you know, it kind of just fell off the map. There were crickets for 2 years, for at least 2 years, for a long time. And that zoning sign went down. People were asking me, oh, what's going on? Do you know anything? Have you had an update? I didn't know. I don't know what the rules are for that zoning sign that goes up on the property, but it hasn't been there for some time. So I don't know if that's an issue or not. But so until about a month ago, we didn't even know if this project was ongoing still. And then we got a notice, or it was our counselor arranged a kind of a quick meeting to re-engage with the developer. It was very short notice. It was put together. I don't know how much notice our counselor had, but and everything seemed really rushed. Here's the new plans. We'll talk about it. Any questions you have. And it really wasn't a time for a Q&A. The meeting was next week, and which was last week. And we had some questions. We didn't really get a lot of answers, which was frustrating. Some of the answers we got were ambiguous. I know I had some questions on that traffic report, and the answers didn't really jive with what I read in that report. So the there has been no real public consultation on this, not in a real robust way. I've seen much better consultations on other projects and other things. I heard a lot about the pickleball, which was really encouraging. That was kind of interesting, and I wish we had that kind of exposure. But you told us that this file, because you feared that if it wasn't approved and the city staff had approved it, that we would get sued or the city would get sued and this couldn't move forward, that that wasn't really a viable way forward. But if the city staff are able to make that decision, make a recommendation, and you guys aren't voting on it, or you're just moving forward because you're afraid to get sued, why are we all here? Aren't you guys supposed to represent us and make a decision? The facts are there, yes, but there's also reality. They're really, and the other thing is the media hasn't really had a chance to respond to this. And then we talked to the Liberal, their news cycle hasn't been able to catch up. So they're going to publish probably after this meeting, after you've made some kind of decision. And the Liberal, I mean, I see them here today. I'm glad they're here. They're the most important people in this room, and they haven't been able to report on it, at least not that I have seen. Really, really rough. This is not ready right now for any kind of decision. I mean, it definitely should be deferred. We should have more meaningful engagement, more discussion, more real dialogue. And so we can get a project that we can all live with. There's a lot of issues that are unresolved, and I know we can come to some kind of agreement. So please have the courage to at least defer this or give us more time. I mean, you guys could do it and do it for us, do it for the city. Let's please take more time and think this through. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay. So that completes our delegate list. We have, Council, we have 2 items that we need to discuss. One of them is the pickleball thing. That would be first. And then the second one is this issue that we've been hearing delegations on. I guess what I'm asking is we will need to take a break for lunch at some point. Do you want to take the break now, or do you want to deal with the pickleball issue? I think after that, we would have to take a break. Am I hearing pickleball and then we'll take a break? Okay. Okay. I'm hearing, excuse me. So we will bring forward 15.2.3, which is a request for direction, community pickleball hub planning. And then after that, we'll take a break. We'll come back after that. So the item before us then is, I think to start the conversation off, I'll go to Councillor Silovitz, who is the chair of the Dunlop Observatory Park Steering Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to everybody who spoke.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Especially Mr. Mike Bocott, who has been very involved in this as he was with tennis for many years. And to everybody who wrote in, we got members of council, I can only speak for myself. We got many, many emails sent to us in this regard. There's just a number of things that I want to say. We did speak to this last week as well at committee, but there's just a number of things that I would like to add. Number one, the pause that we are voting on and that staff is suggesting is not that we are kiboshing this program. That's not it at all. We need a pause to have a better idea and to seriously look at what we are doing here. There are a number of issues that require our absolute attention as members of council. We don't want this to be an adversarial moment in time at all. This is not what this is about. What we want to do is we want to take a pause so we can look at some very, very relevant things. Number one, the capital costs for this. So we have to look, we are beholden to look and ensure that the capital costs for this particular project are going to be agreeable across the board. We don't only serve pickleball sports enthusiasts. We serve all sports enthusiasts across the city: soccer, baseball, basketball, ice hockey. And we have the same concerns that are brought to us daily about our residents being concerned that there's not enough ice time, or there's not enough soccer field time, or somebody else is taking up too much soccer field time. So this is something that's across the board. Pickleball is something that is relatively new, absolutely. So as a result, we as a city and as a municipality, we're playing catch up. And we're doing our very best to play that catch up as diligently as we possibly can. We have already in place 20 courts. So there are in Oak Ridges Community Center, these are numbers that are either in place or shall be in place. Oak Ridges Community Center has 6. Rouge Woods Community Center has 6. Bayview Hill will have 3. Elgin West, 3. McConaughey, 2. That's 20. And that does not even include the pop-up courts that we now have established at Richmond Green. So I understand, and I absolutely appreciate everybody's perspective. And I want to thank Mr. Bocott for inviting us on July the 15th. I will definitely be there if it's not too hot. I can't go out in the heat. It's a medical issue, but I will most definitely be there because I would like to see how it's played at Richmond Green, where the residents are satisfied by what we've put up there. That is a temporary solution to a dire problem. So we are doing everything we possibly can to ensure that we ultimately do have enough pickleball courts to service the population. However, I say that in a very reserved manner because, to be honest, we don't have enough soccer fields, basketball courts, ice hockey pads to service the entire residency of Richmond Hill and those who come in as well from outside. We have a parks plan. We are going through we're going through plans that we have to identify very specific issues with regards to pickleball, as well as all the other sports that we as a municipality service for the residents. So what I would like to say is this. I said a lot last week, and I don't need to repeat myself. The most important thing is that this pause does not cancel this at all. We are simply going to look at, do we require 16 courts? Should there be other sports facilities that are on the panhandle as well? There are many, many issues. Stakeholders need to have meetings with us, members of council again, with staff members. We are going to do everything we can to ensure that this pickleball issue is dealt with, and whether or not there should be how many courts on the panhandle, whether it should be outdoors, indoors, whether there should be a clubhouse. There are so many things we have to discuss. So all I ask is that everybody just give us just a little bit of patience while we deal with this issue. We will come through for you. We just have to make sure that we're doing it in the right and the responsible manner that is our duty, especially to capital costs. So, Mr. Mayor, excuse me for going long.
That's okay.
I will move the recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Second person on the list is Councillor Hsu.
Thanks, Chair. Firstly, it totally makes sense for me to know how losing the development charges revenue would affect things. That money is crucial for building sports facilities all over the city. But right now, things are uncertain, and we need to review the original plan. I understand that. But at the same time, however, I remember there was a presentation about the future plan of DDO Park, and the staff was super excited about putting 16 pickleball courts in one area. And the whole council was excited too. There was no one object this plan for that presentation. And now I was told that there's a situation and we have to put it on hold. So I'm confused. I'm confused now. And most importantly is the survey showed that 57% the respondents support the design for the pickleball facility in DDO Park. So in my opinion, we have to respect the result and figure out the right number of the courts and how to deal with the noise and light issues. That's what we are going to do. And in my opinion, I don't think putting on hold and a pause on the whole plan is the only solution. Actually, we can consider reducing the number of the courts. We can consider limiting the hours of operations. We can consider making them indoors for year-round, and also promoting the use of quiet paddles to reduce noise level. There's a lot of ways what we can do further. But I don't think to make a pause is the only solution at this moment. And those options are better than scrapping the whole thing and wasting all the time and money we've already putting into. That's my opinion. Yes, I agree with Councillor Silvers that I understand these are all included in the park plan, and we should consider them as a whole. So it's a very hard decision for me to support this staff report or not at this moment, as it's an omnibus. This is an omnibus to include all the planning pickleball courts there. But the DDO Park is a special location. We have a separate committee to talk about everything in the DDO Park. So as the vice chair of the DDO Park committee, I have a question here. When this issue will be coming up to the DDO committee?
Okay, that would be Commissioner Kwan.
Thank you for the question, Councilor Shu, through you, Mr. Mayor. As indicated in the staff report, if council were to accept the recommendation, staff would bring forward a report through the budget cycle of 24 with proposed implementation in 25 for the ongoing study that we're looking to, that we have recommended to council. Otherwise, we would continue with the design work as we've already started if council does not vote for the pause.
So that means we have to wait until next year to have a further discussion, right? That's my understanding. I just have to emphasize that I'm not going to supporting anything. I'm not going to supporting the 16 pickleball courts in DDO Park. But what I'm doing is to ask to extract the recommendation D. I support the recommendation A, B, and C, but I'm hesitant. I'm so reluctant to support the recommendation D or related to the DDO Park pickleball court because we have a separate committee to discuss stuff in the DDO Park. So I need a direction from the clerk. What am I supposed to do? If I want to extract it out or just make an amendment, or I have no idea.
Okay,
what
well,
the next step?
We are looking for a seconder for the motion, and it doesn't sound like you're going to be willing to second it, which is fine. But I mean, at this point in time, you know, there are options procedurally that you can have, but I mean, we can also separate out the the A, B, C, and D when it comes time for a vote. That's another. It sounds to me like that's kind of where you're going.
I think it's a good idea to separate.
Okay.
The recommendation D.
Okay. Well, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, that's my idea. Yeah.
Okay. Are you done? Okay. So we are still looking for a seconder then for the motion. Councillor Davidson, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I do support a pause here on this plan. I received a lot of letters too. Many of them are not from people that live in Richmond Hill, and I think it's exciting that these sports bring all the communities together. That's great. But we do have an obligation to the citizens of Richmond Hill first. And in my opinion, this plan did not go through all the steps of due diligence to figure out if the DDO is the best place. In fact, there was a very extensive article in the New York Times on the weekend about all the lawsuits of people living close to pickleball, that the noise is driving people who've lived in homes for 45 years out of their homes. I think there's so much to consider here. The noise, I think we've all seen this summer, we all need to be clued into the environment. So is a big flat of asphalt what we need there? Should we have another sport that's grass related? And forgive me if pickleball can be on grass, but I think the plan, we need to see what is viable there on a bunch of levels. I also think that there's an impression that Richmond Hill's bailing on pickleball when we have 20 courts plus 10 pop-ups, that's 30 courts. Let's start with that. I heard the delegate and I really appreciate his involvement and his enthusiasm. I didn't hear him mention other municipalities that had this size of a pickleball facility. So it may be viable somewhere else. Maybe something smaller is going to work here. Maybe what we've been presented is the right move. But I do think a pause is the wise thing to do for the budget, for the people who live near the DDO, for all Richmond Hill residents, because we all have to share the funds we have and fairly and equitably serve all the different interests. So I support this pause. We're not bailing on pickleball. I'm happy it makes people healthy and happy and social. We'll find our 30, we'll see how our 30 courts are used and do all the steps we need to put an important piece of land like at the DDO, decide whether that's the right place for this. So I support this pause and this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, through the mayor. I certainly want to echo what my colleagues have been saying, that this is not a pickleball bashing session here. We're actually trying to make sure that we get this right. As Mr. Bocott had identified, there are a number of questions that really need to be addressed. And I agree with him. When I watched this come before the previous council, I thought, this is being rushed in. This is not being thought out properly. We really need a proper plan. So yes, I fully support the pause. I appreciate that the commissioner, indicated how the pause is expected to play out. And I agree wholeheartedly that we need to get this right. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to say up front that I believe I said it last week as well. I think that we are in a learning process in terms of, the word has been mentioned, catching up, how as a municipality, we really would increase the capacity in terms of courts, particularly dedicated courts for these really ever-growing sports. And I want to thank all the delegates, and I'll come back to it in a minute, but also staff. Staff not only provide a report, which is outline the consultation they've been doing, online survey and other information session and so on. Now, coming back to the delegates, if I hear it right, I think Mr. Bocott, and he has been very forthright, is saying that we need those courts, we need it quick and cope with the really increasing number of players. And I'm with him on that one. And also, if I hear him right, I think at the end, I don't seem to sense that he's totally opposing. Pausing is necessarily not a good thing, as long as the city, as one of my colleagues, not only the courts indoors at those community centers and the 10 pop-up in Richmond Green, I can tell you from experience, we have at least 2 dedicated courts at King's College Park, close to Valley Drive. We also have a number of other courts in the actually Grovewood Park, Morgan Bow Park. So actually we have more courts actually that actually now being used. So I think the word has been mentioned, or the phrase has been mentioned. I think as a council, I for one, I'm for having a really club-like kind of facility, similar to some tennis club and so on for these particular sports that accommodate and also plan for activities for the community for all ages. So I'm in support of the pausing. So we want to make sure we do it right, because that at the end of the day, noise has been mentioned, and I know quite well for the King's Court, 2 dedicated courts that are staffed with engineering, with transportation, with community services, do all kinds of things to mitigate the impact in terms of noise, parking, and other things with the nearby residents. And the proposed earlier on 16 court was also not that far away from restaurant Berwick. I do remember there's discussion about we might have to do noise mitigation, and I think it's also mentioned maybe in the industry, the sports, they might have come up with some other pads, rackets that might not make as much noise. So I think that in the end, it's not just demonstrating with the A to D recommendation on this motion, we're not stopping anything. In fact, we're continuing. We didn't say no. And Councillor Thompson said it well. We're not bashing pickleball. In fact, we're looking for meaningful and viable way and rightful way to support the sports. And I've been to indoor courts a couple of times in Richmond. And yes, and I think our young gentleman mentioned about for youth, and I think the delegates talk about perhaps the life-changing situation with people from different ages. And I've seen that people from different ages actually playing with it. Even I believe just 2 Sundays ago, when the Roachwood indoor court is open, very shortly is filled to capacity. So I'm in support of continuation of doing what we can, but also wisely, properly, with the supporting pickleball courts. And it's been mentioned in some other jurisdictions in North America that it's true. The noise has become an issue, and certain has actually been taken to court. And I think this is a time we look at, get more data so that we have to do it properly during the budget time. And I don't think in any way, form, or shape, we are not supporting the pickleball community. We just want to make sure we do it right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time for sharing my comments in support of this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else on a first round? We've had a request for a second. Go ahead, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I somehow hold a different view on this one, especially I'm agreeing A, B, C, but I have some question about D on pausing this, because I remember that July 2022, council approved staff recommendation that the Panhandle lands are the only site in Richmond Hill that can fit a pickleball hub. So we already spent 47% of the reserve money investing on this one. And we have discussed this in the DDO Park Project Steering Committee. That's why I'm really uncomfortable in pausing this. I'm going to tell you my vision on pickleball is, I always ask myself, do you want to put Richmond Hill on the map? And I think pickleball is the one that we should pursue. This is going to be revenue generating. This is going to be, I wanted to hold national and international tournament in Richmond Hill. And I think this is a very good location to do this. I don't know if not this, where else we can find a location for a designated pickleball park for this. Before that, I too have a question. Thank you, Councillor Shiu, for triggering my thought. Has this been discussed at the DDO Park Steering Committee? Because I'm quite surprised by this report that comes to council. But usually, like the Heritage Committee, we talk and discuss at the Heritage Committee, and then they have a recommendation to council. But are we skipping that step through you, Mr. Mayor?
Yep. Mr. Commissioner?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the matter has been discussed at the DDO steering committee. I would just remind council on page 4 of the staff report that outlines the public process that we've gone through for the consultation of the DDO works overall, but there was certainly a lot of focus on the viability and appropriateness of a pickleball hub in this location. So it outlines the statistics from the committee as well as the survey results that we did for the DDO.
Thank you. So this has been discussed. I see Councillor Shiu shaking his head. This is the vice chair. And I don't recall anything. I know there's a public consultation, but it's a procedural question. Shall we get a recommendation from the steering committee to council? Then we'll decide whether or not we are pausing this. That's my question. So if it hasn't gone through the steering committee, I would much more comfortable referring this to the steering committee, because the steering committee involve public committee members, not just council, and they will have a better understanding and background of the DDO park and the vision on having this pickleball court. So, because I honestly, I don't recall anything being discussed in the DDO park regarding the pause on this project.
Mr. Commissioner?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if it's the wish of council to refer it back to the DDO steering committee, the next meeting would be in the fall, in September.
And I wouldn't mind. I think, procedurally to be correct, I rather this been discussed at the committee and then get a consensus at the committee and then recommendation to council. So can I make a referral motion?
You can, and absolutely you can. Sorry, I need to change my tone there. I guess the only concern I would have, and if you don't mind, referring it back to the DDO steering committee is one thing, but there's a lot more issues other than specifically that the DDO steering committee would be dealing with. But you certainly can make a referral. There's no question about that.
I'm going to give it a try. I'll make a referral motion to refer D to the DDO Park Project Steering Committee.
Okay. So, Mr. Clerk, if you could put that up on the screen. Well, it's just the one item, Councillor, right? That you want to refer?
Yes, only
Okay.
D.
Yeah, I see it. Well, so the next thing that we do will be on the amendment. Do you want a round 2 on the main motion? Well, then speak on the amendment. Yeah, okay. Put you down for the amendment. Okay. Okay, Councillor Liu, are you done then, or? Okay, okay.
Okay, thank you. With all due respect, I think, procedurally, I think this is the way to go.
Okay, thank you. Regional Local Councillor Chan, you had your hand up. Do you want to second that?
No, actually I have questions. And also I'd like to point out, Mr. Kirk is Dunlap, D-U-N-L-A-P. Please revise. So maybe a way to, if the seconder, then I would.
Okay, well, let me find a seconder, then we'll come back to you. Okay, can I have a seconder for this? Okay, Councillor Xu, do you want to speak to it?
That's enough for me. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So coming back to Regional Local Councillor Chan, then we've got a seconder. Go ahead.
Thank you. I understand where my colleague who just moved and second the referral motion, and I'm concerned about that. The subject matter, as stated clearly in this staff report and the agenda item, it requests for direction. So I understand where the two colleagues coming from, but which meaning we're not giving direction, perhaps only to B and C. And that would, unless staff can advise me, through Mr. Chair, to either Commissioner Kwang or Commissioner Steele, assuming the motion referred D is adopted by majority, then what would be the status? Is still design, I think I might hear, will just continue with the design work, or is still pausing until that from Council New standpoint, procedurally proper to go through the DDO Observatory Park Steering Committee and then come back. I mean, what's going to happen is that things will be put at standstill. If it is, then it's no different to me. Materialized, materially speaking, what's D and referral through you, Mr. Chair. I don't know whether Commissioner Steele or Commissioner Kwang, what would happen to staff in terms of direction you're getting or not getting, assuming this motion referral is adopted by majority. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Commissioner.
Through you, Mr. Chair. It's a good question, Councillor Chan, because it does put staff in a bit of a limbo. We do have started the design work, and it's on the basis of the 16-court hub. However, if there's some question as to the direction proceeding on that, then I would probably suggest that the ongoing design work would also need to be paused, at least until we have the outcome from recommendation D. I would point out, however, that it may delay the implementation of the hub should we decide to proceed. So we have to be conscious of the building seasons and contractors and things of that nature going forward. So I can't speak to the implications or the potential outcome of a delay on the future design of the hub at this point, but my interpretation of this proposed recommendation would be that we should also pause the additional work going forward on the design.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair, to Commissioner Kwang's answer. And that's where I have some difficulty in supporting this referral motion, because in essence and in reality, that the whole proposed previously, or still is, the 16 court with the club proposal is being on hold with uncertainty. So basically, we don't have direction to staff, and I honestly don't really see that what's is going to be gained. Now, I do see something gained. Perhaps it's mentioned that I know well that there are 3 committee members sitting on the DDO Park Steering Committee project team. So perhaps their comments will be good. But then the timeline, I'm also concerned that it might somehow, maybe a commission might touch on it, impact upon B and C as we see it, because B would be for staff to come up to say, hey, let's look at not just pickleball, but tennis together strategy, because we are talking about some relying that could be done in the interim. I know that's not the preferred kind of arrangement for both dedicated tennis players and dedicated pickleball players. But however, relining for more than just pickleball is one way to accommodate the growth of these sports in the interim, even before even 10, 15, or 16 courts are being built. And also with C, and I wonder, for you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to get feedback or answer to the extent possible from staff, if assuming the motion to refer adopted by majority, which I now get a picture is meaning everything put on pause, which in substance is not much different from D, except missing the part of the new study or it gains to the consultation at the committee. Would B and C impacted through Mr. Chair, assuming the referral motion is adopted by majority?
Commissioner.
To you, Mr. Mayor. While the staff recommendations were put forward as a bundle, they can be separated, B and C, but as I suggested earlier, it does impact overall the potential outcome of the study, because we won't have the insight that we want to have going forward on looking at this thing, looking at everything comprehensively, because we'll be making a bit of an assumption potentially about what's going into the Panhandle site. So there's a bit of a chicken and egg thing going on here. But I would, just remind council, we do have, some 40 or 20 indoor courts and 16 outdoor courts, 20 to be built or delivered by 2024. So my advice going forward is that, we do things in accordance with the staff advice, because we do have, I believe the city has been proactive in the delivery of the pickleball, but we are given the information that we now know since the original decision in July of 22. There's a reasonable explanation that we should take the pause and re-examine the delivery of this program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the response. And for what the commissioner just outlined, I see A, B, C, D as a package, so to speak, because they kind of relationship impacting one another, except A, receive. So on that note, while I understand that we do want to go through procedurally, I would be interested to hear what the chair, Councillor Civilis, would say to that. But I have, as I said, I have difficulty in supporting the motion referred, because in substance, we're not only not giving direction, the staff are asking, and they're impacting B and C, and putting the whole thing on pause. And on that basis, I'm not in a position. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, where are we? Okay, Councillor Davidson. No, you've already spoken, right? Oh, on the amendment. My apologies. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I am concerned that if we wait till September for the committee, is that when, I'm still not clear, is that when we start triggering the rest of it, that staff will start, that the pause will basically start now. Then in September, the committee decides what they want to do. Then we finally get to the part where we're putting the 280,000 into additional facilities that I'm really, does this delay to September trigger the rest of it after September, or we bypass A through D? I'm still not quite clear on this amendment.
Who are you? Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to elaborate a little more. One of the assumptions going forward in this recommended studies that we have regarding the overall strategy is that we would be looking at everything comprehensively and we look at everything comprehensively. In the event, or one of the assumptions going into that study, however, would be that I'm not sure where we put or how we incorporate the notion of a 16-court hub into those ongoing studies. It becomes a bit, as I say, chicken and egg. With respect, though, however, if we were to refer the matter back to the DDO steering committee, that's the meeting scheduled for September, although the date has not been confirmed. And then we have to still come back to this council for further report and analysis. So again, I would suggest to you that the whole program becomes in flux, both the studies and the potential delivery of the pickleball hub on the Panhandle, should council wish to proceed.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Boy, I must be thick because I still don't quite understand if we're triggering this whole 4A through D in September, triggering the whole thing, or bypassing it. That's just, okay, let me put it this way. If we accept the amendment, are we still going to proceed with A through D? Whenever, now or September?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, perhaps an alternate strategy may be just to pause everything. I'd say that kind of off the cuff. Haven't had time to confer with staff, but then that provides clear direction that we're not doing anything and we avoid the confusion of what the interrelationship of the various studies and direction is. But I think again, to emphasize the position of staff at this point in time, is that we have really gathered enough information, have enough concerns to recommend to this council that we do pause the DDO previous DDO decision, and that we look at a comprehensive study and start that work immediately. And this, of course, aligns with the parks and recreation strategies and plans the council has recently adopted, together with the information that we received specifically on the DDO consultation.
The city manager wanted to weigh in, if you don't mind. Go ahead. Oh, there we go.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to try to provide some clarity on this. This is not about the location of the DDO. This is about making sure that we can validate the scope of work for the hub, that we address all the issues that we've brought forward to council in terms of noise and parking, and dovetail in all of the recommendations that came in the parks plan for other amenities as well. Mr. Bocott actually spoke to some of those issues and agrees that there are things that we need to continue to have a conversation on and discuss to make sure that we get it right, so that we're not building something that is going to cause council or the city grief and unwind things in the future because we didn't get it right. By separating, if I may, with all due respect, by separating out D, in essence, you're putting us on pause completely until the fall. Then we need to go through the DDO steering committee with all of it. Then we need to come back to council, and we've lost 3 or 4 months of time that we can spend with our staffing resources getting answers and more information and data collection to bring something back in 2024 as part of the capital budget process for council to make those decisions. So again, it's not about not doing pickleball. It's about doing it right.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, is there anything to stop staff from consulting members of the committee unofficially? Has there been any direction from the committee, the steering committee up till now? And does it have to be so formal that we can't make it part of this process?
Well, I mean, it's direction to staff, right? We're either, if council is saying don't do it, we don't do it. If council is saying do it, then we do it. I mean, this is.
But I would
mean,
assume the further comprehensive view, forgive me, through you, Mr.
yeah.
Mayor, is to consider whatever the steering committee has suggested so far.
Okay, all right.
Anyway, I'll leave that for now. I do want to say, I just think climate change needs to be considered in everything we do, and budgets and things have changed since 2022. I was actually at the, and I'm sure I'll get some eye rolls, but I was at the Gormley GO station, and there's an entire massive asphalt parking lot that isn't even used because we have another station just 2 kilometers up. And I would love it if part of this comprehensive review is to figure out of the box ways to utilize areas that we already have. Maybe we'll put in trees. Maybe we'll work with the Ontario government to ask, or Metrolinx to maybe lease that parking lot. And then we could probably have 50 boards.
Councillor, sorry, we need to stick to the.
Okay, sorry. I support the four points.
Okay.
And I don't see a point of having a steering committee if they're not going to be asked. So in my humble opinion, I guess we have to include the amendment.
Okay.
Because
thank you.
otherwise, what's the point of the steering committee?
All right, thank you. Councillor Silovitz, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for this discussion. As the chair of the DDOP Steering Committee, I would like to ask this question through you, Mr. Chair, either to Director Flores or to Manager Dolby, who are both with us here in council chambers. It's my understanding, and the way it has been explained to me, that this report comes to us from planning. It does not come to us from EIS, Engineering, Infrastructure, Services. So is there someone who, or perhaps the commissioner, what is the difference of having brought this forward to us from the planning department, as opposed to having it come to us, come to the committee, and then come back to council? Perhaps that needs clarifying.
Commissioner?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure I understand the full question, but for clarity, both planning, or the report was authored by the policy planning group who do the parks plan and the parks planning. EIS is the delivery agent for the city to build facilities. However, they are consulted as part of this overall, and they are part of my department. So, however, the EIS team does lead the implementation of the DDO strategy going forward to deliver the approved plans by this council. So
Thank you.
I've answered your question.
Yeah, no, you did.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. I appreciate that. That's the crux of this matter here, is how this particular report has been presented or has come to council. Nobody, in my opinion, as the chair, nobody has tried to circumvent the committee, not at all, not under any circumstances. This will ultimately come to the committee, but this is a planning report. This is a planning document, planning staff report that will require the specific information. So again, with all respect to Councillors Liu and Shu, I cannot support the referral because, as has been said by many, we do not want this to be in any way paused or held even further. We must continue the process. If we do not continue the process, it's going to back everything up even further. So in order for us to keep moving through the process, I do believe, and I am in support of the recommendations, and that is why I moved the motion forward for the staff recommendations. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind, again, I just want to repeat this, that this will ultimately come to committee. It will then come to council, and we will have all this further public discussion and committee input and public input. Very important. The DDO panhandle was identified by the Parks Plan as identified to be a sports hub. That's what's in the plan that was approved. So we brought forward and this is just me speaking off the cuff, we brought forward the possibility and the concept of having it as a pickleball hub because we were in such dire straits in having pickleball courts absent. So we have to look at this in a holistic perspective. It's not, we can't really compartmentalize it. What we're looking at is first of all, in my opinion, as a council, doing the right thing. Secondly, we have to listen to everybody who has come forward, and that includes people who are against the 16 courts on the panhandle. Got many of those emails too. So there are many people here who need to have further discussion, and I do believe that in this particular report, it lays it out quite clearly. That is what we need to do. So the pause is for us to get more information. If we further pause by this motion, this referral motion, we're going to backtrack and I think we'll eventually find ourselves in an absolute quagmire where, as far as pickleball courts are concerned. So we want to address this, and I am quite comfortable that this is going to be addressed appropriately. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on the referral? Okay, I'll just speak on the referral. First of all, I want to, this has been a good discussion. I don't agree with everything that's been said, but I've spent a ton of time on this over the last couple of weeks, and I feel a little uncomfortable about the direction because I want to get it done. Like I really want this to be done so people can enjoy the courts, but so I respect that. I think all of us, every single comment I've heard so far here has been, we're actually pulling on the same rope in the same direction. We're just not, we're thinking about moving at it from a different direction. But the conclusion that I've come to as this past week especially has gone by, and I've spoken to staff a number of times and so on, was that the path forward with the staff report that we have in front of us, or the staff recommendation, is actually the fastest route from A to B. And the concern that I have with this, and I understand Councillor Liu's intention here, and I salute that, but I think that sending it to the DDO Park Steering Committee isn't going to give us the fundamental answers that we need in order to move this forward. And so as such, I'm worried that this will actually delay the process, although that's not at all what the intention is here. Everybody wants this to get done. But I think we need, I've spoken to staff a number of times. We are in a little bit of a quagmire now, actually. And I think this is what we're all struggling, is to find the fastest path forward. And I really do believe that the motion that we had initially there is that fastest way. Although I must also admit that there is no perfection in the situation that we're in right now. So, we're trying to find the best way to do this. So, all right, Councillor Liu, you had indicated you want a second round. Oh, I'm sorry, Regional Local Councillor DePaula, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have to admit that I'm very confused. So I don't understand why, we're asking for a pause and then referring to fall is going to delay the process. So what's going to happen between now and fall is a pause. If this doesn't go through, it's a pause. So if I refer to the committee, it's a pause. So it's okay. Don't worry. I respect all the comments. I'm not trying to, saying anybody is circumventing the procedure is not. I'm just trying to do things right too, but just a different perspective. And I just wanted to say, if we pause this, and I think we should pause everything, because Councillor Chan said, it's all correlated. So if we decided to build 16 courts, or at the end, we decided to build 40 courts here, we don't need other courts in the other area. So if we pause here and we don't pause the other, and these are all interrelated. So I don't quite understand what are we trying to achieve here? Is a pause is a pause, and it's going to come back 2024 budget cycle. So that's why I can't support because unless we pause everything and look at it a comprehensive way, like the commissioner mentioned, if we just pause this one, so the other courses are still going on. And what happened if we don't build anything here at the end, or we decide to build more? So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Regional Local Councillor Chan, did I see you want a second round?
Yeah. No, not second round. And I think I make it clear already in my first round that interrelated, and at the end of the day, I think Councillor Neil also mentioned, and staff explained it, putting everything at stop. And in November this year, they will be coming on the budget cycle. We have a chance to talk about it. And I respect also chair of the committee, Councillor Silvers, I already stated, nothing is being circumvented here. So I'm comfortable with my original statement that I could not support it for a motion. I'm just going to ask Mr. Chair if you're going to call the vote for referral to have recorded vote as well as for the main motion in the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're sorry, let's vote on the referral then, unless there's any other comments. It doesn't appear that there is. Okay, the motion to refer is on the screen. And did somebody call recorded vote on this? Okay, so recorded vote, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Through the chair, voting on the motion to refer moved by Councillor Liu, Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Sorry, I did not second that.
No, we're revoting.
Oh,
for your
you're
vote.
asking me to vote.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
No, thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Silovitz.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Shiu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Yes.
Thank you. And Councillor Thompson.
No.
Thank you. The motion to refer fails to carry.
Okay, we're back to the main motion then. We've got, everybody has spoken on the first round except Councillor Tree and DePaulo and myself. Do you guys want to speak on this? Okay, Councillor DePaulo, no. Okay, I'll just make some comments. So I want to be clear on this, that I think all of council and certainly myself are committed to getting these pickleball courts done. We've heard countless times about the demand. We've heard countless times about the benefits, and I completely understand that and completely agree. It would be great if we could, make this happen as quickly as possible, and that's what we're trying to do. We do have added courts, and we've added a number of them in response to this demand, and we've tried to get those done as quickly as we can. There are more coming. We have indoor courts available, and we need to continue, regardless of this hub, we need to continue to add pickleball courts, and that the parks plan speaks to that. So that is the path that we're on. As I said, I've spent a lot of time on this, and it's really confusing. And I must admit, it's not the situation where we want to be in right now. But I think that this motion will give us time and breathing space to find out all the answers that we need to get. And one of them especially concerns me is the noise. We've had many concerns over the last little while about pickleball courts that got built at a fairly significant expense, I suspect, by other municipalities, and then got shut down because it was driving the community crazy. And we have to avoid that at all costs. It would be crazy to be building courts that end up not being able to be used properly. So I think we need to complete this process as quickly as possible. I've had many conversations with the staff, and they have indicated to me that that will happen. We are looking at a significant capital expense, and it is a worthwhile capital expense as far as I'm concerned. But the reality is that we're also in an environment where our capital budget and DCs are shrinking, due to a number of factors, including Bill 23. So, and also I think we need to acknowledge that there have been a lot of people that want pickleball, and we've received great comments and letters. I've read all of them. They're all good, but we've also had a number of people that are concerned about it. In fact, we had one today that was a pickleball player, but also lives in the neighborhood and has concerns. So I think we need to get this right, and we owe that to our residents. There are milestones that are in that motion. As the first one that's really important is the 2024 budget, the capital budget. And before we build anything, it needs to get through the capital budget process. And I think also this gives us time to get the tennis and pickleball strategy moving along, hopefully close to completion, that will really help to inform what we do with pickleball and tennis, actually. But again, I really am concerned about a number of issues at the site that we're talking about that have never really been, in my opinion anyway, properly vetted with firm answers, and that is noise and even parking. So those need to be number one on my priority list to make sure we get information back from the city, from our staff to say, yes, in fact, that number of courts will fit, the parking will be appropriate, and the noise will not upset the community in an unreasonable way. So that has to be done. And this pause, as far as I understand from the research I've done, will give us the time to do that. So again, I just want to reiterate, I mean, I don't play pickleball, but I from everybody I've spoken to, everybody that seems to pick up a pickleball racket seems to get hooked. So, I understand that. I think it's a really great sport. I mean, people talk about pickleball with regard to the therapeutic value. I mean, I've never heard that in any other sport. It's great for older people. It's great for younger people. I mean, it really is a win-win situation, and we need to get these done as quickly as possible. And I know that it sounds kind of counterintuitive to be pausing to hurry up, but I think in a lot of ways, that's what we're trying to accomplish here. And the discussion that we've had so far on council, I think if you look carefully, that's all what we're trying to do. So anyway, I'll be happy to support the entire motion. And Mr. Clerk, I think unless there's other comments. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Speaking to the main motion, I can support A, B, C, but not D. So I would respectfully ask that we separate D.
We are.
Okay, great. Thank you. So again, so I'm still don't understand, pausing this, that, and we don't pause the others. If we can solve the light and noise concern in other courts, I don't know why we can't solve this. So it's either pause everything or not pause. So that's only my comments. And one more thing is I'm not in favor of relining the tennis court for pickleball. This is a formula for disasters. Tennis is tennis, pickleball is pickleball. Indoors, fine, but outdoor, it won't work. So I just want to make that clear. So, when we are, discussing the tennis and pickleball strategy, I would like staff to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Silovitz on a second round. Anybody else on a second round?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, if I may, through you to our city manager, there was a suggestion made that there's been a rush to judgment here with how we have come forward from point X to point Y, and now we're at Z. So if you could, Madam City Manager, could you please just briefly go through with us all the steps we have taken in order for us to legitimately get here? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll do my best for all the steps, and then I'll rely on the Commissioner of Planning to help me out. But when we were given direction, I begged council prior to the parks plan being approved to look at pickleball on this site with a 16-court community hub. We did undertake some investigation in terms of the properties that the city had that may hold something of this magnitude. And the DDO Panhandle lands were the only property that we had in our inventory to respond exponentially to council in this regard. But we did not have all the information that we're now saying we need to collect on pickleball in front of us when we came back to council with that property location. And then the parks plan was approved afterwards, and we continue to learn. And what we did recommend when we did come back to council was to respond as quickly as we possibly could to the community wanting pickleball, is when we asked council to support the pop-up 10-court facility at Richmond Green.
Thank you, Madam City Manager. Mr. Commissioner, do you want to add anything? Through you, Mr. Mayor?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, the city manager explained it very well. I could just
Thank
to
you.
reiterate though, it is a learning process.
Yeah.
And there are different issues at play now than were in existence at the time when this decision was made. I will, Mr. Mayor, I want to apologize to this council. I've since been reminded by my staff that this matter did not go to the steering committee on this report, but nevertheless, the report stands in terms of the advice from staff.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure the public record showed that there was no rush to judgment here, that we did go through all the steps we had to go through legitimately and legislatively, and we will continue the process. This is a process. And it's important to me as the chair of the DDOP steering committee and as a member of council that is understood by the members of the public and also by members of this council who may not have been present in the previous term. So that's all I needed to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through the mayor, just want to get some clarification on what Councillor Liu was looking for in terms of separating out A, B, C, and D. Were you looking at A, B, and C together and then D separately?
I think that's what's been asked for.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate that. The one comment that I would like to make is that I think in doing this, we're capturing the right information. I think that moving forward, pickleball is still been in a bit of its infancy, and it's also maturing at the same time. They're already introducing noise dampening rackets, things like that. So I think it's prudent for us to get as much information as we can and get this right. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have a motion in front of us. What we'll deal with is all of the items on the motion. I can't remember the letters, and we will separate out. Is it D, right?
Record the votes, please.
Recorded votes been called. So, Mr. Clerk, let's do A through C first, and then we'll do D after. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, voting on the motion, clauses A, B, and C of that motion, Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shiu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu. Yes. Thank you. Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you. Clauses A, B, and C carry unanimously. Voting on clause D, Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu. Thank you. Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shiu.
No.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor, clause D carries only and the entire motion is carried.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. So at this point in time, we'll take a break we'll be back here. It's 1:03 right now, so we'll be back at 2:05, if that's acceptable with everybody. So I'm sorry, but from a health and safety perspective, we are going to have to break for lunch. I am sorry, but unfortunately, we have all of the staff and all of council also that under workplace health and safety need to have a time to have a bathroom break and a washroom break. I'm sorry, ma'am. I really am. Unfortunately, this meeting has been very long. I just said 2:05, 1 hour.